As soon as the dress fell to the floor, the scissors crept through the gap of the sugar-cut halter top. In a moment, it completed its task and the girl lay down on the bed, thinking that marrying a billionaire would be a blessing. Who would have though that perfect happiness is just a commodity so people can't get though the day. Where will the fate of that long-legged girl go? Let go with me to the content of today's movie. Elizabeth's just got married to a rich scientist named Henry. After the wedding party, took Elizabeth to his house at the top. If he wanted to get down, he had to go up the hill. Henry introduced the young wife to his butler Clay and his blind eldest son, Olive. The food has already been prepared. Everyone Luong Mai, the age gap couple, enjoyed a romantic dinner together. But Henry didn't eat much because he was still interested in grazing young grass on the wedding night, which was especially passionate. The next day, Henry surprised Elizabeth with a wardrobe full of clothes. She could not believe that her husband knew her measurements and bought all sorts of things. Henry enthusiastically took his young wife to visit everywhere in the house so she could get used to the new living environment. After seeing all the rooms, a door in the hallway attracted Elizabeth's attention. She asked curiously. There was nothing inside. He immediately emphasized that everything in the house was fine. Belongs to his wife, but this room is taboo. Henry made her promise not to go in there no matter what happens. Only after getting married did Henry have to go on a business trip. Elizabeth woke up in a large but empty bed, alone in the pool. She floated and circled a few times. The young girl felt a bit lost in the large mansion. When Elizabeth was exploring the state house, the butler approached and asked the landlady if she was hungry. Before clearing, she got ready. During the meal, Elizabeth asked her a few things about Henry. However, Clay did not want to share any information about the boss who only ate and played all day. Elizabeth changed countless outfits and wore countless sets of jewelry in the evening. That day, after Elizabeth went to take a shower, she saw that the housekeeper had come home. She had trouble sleeping and was curious about the taboo room in the hallway. After a moment of pondering, Elizabeth broke Henry's only rule and entered the room. This room looks like an experimental place. Elizabeth saw 6 drawers with a display screen on them. She was curious about what was in the drawer. Elizabeth pressed the button to open it. She was shocked to discover that inside was a freeze containing a corpse. Seeing a copy of herself unconscious and preserved, she was terrified and ran back to the bedroom to try to calm herself. Elizabeth wanted to contact the outside world, but the phone lost connection, making her extremely scared. The next day, Henry returned, although she felt uncomfortable around her husband. Elizabeth still acted as if nothing had happened. It was necessary for her to stay safe and find a way to escape. Henry seemed to have noticed other things, strange in his wife's eyes. In the middle of the night, he got out of bed and went out. Elizabeth secretly followed, not expecting Henry to be waiting, not saying anything that the billionaire murdered his wife the next night. Crepe and Olive helped Henry bury him. The strange thing about the body in the garden is that no one seemed surprised or frightened, as if they had experienced doing this many times. After handling the body, all 3 had breakfast together, but the tree sat in the same position. The owner of the house warned Henry to stop, but he didn't listen and they got into an argument. Claire angrily left the dinner table that same day. Detective Logan, a friend of Henry, came to visit. Logan asked about Elizabeth, but Henry changed the direction of the conversation. He gave his friend advice to reduce tension. At work, next week, Elizabeth was brought home. Everything happened again exactly like the previous person. The billionaire carried his wife into the house and introduced the villa in the same way as before. The indispensable thing was that on the wedding night, the dress fell on the pair of scissors that did not its job. The old buffalo continued to nibble on the young grass. Elizabeth was still curious, just like the previous wife. She entered the laboratory. She opened the drawer and saw her clone. Elizabeth was scared and ran back to the room. The license plate happened when the other clone opened her eyes. She stood up and walked away, coming out after being preserved for a long time. The girl seemed confused about her whereabouts and identity. She walked out of the laboratory. She headed to her room to take a nap. The next day, Henry woke up his wife. Elizabeth ran into the bathroom, closed her thoughts. She felt confused about her marriage and safety. Henry discovered that she had broken into that room. He was about to kill her and not accept her fate. Elizabeth struggled to protest after escaping control. She ran down to the front door, regretting that it was locked and could not get out. Elizabeth immediately took a knife as a defense weapon while Henry soaked the towel with anesthetic, suddenly appeared from behind and grabbed it in the face. Elizabeth thought she was going to faint on the branch, but otherwise, Elizabeth suddenly swung her hand and stabbed the knife into the back of Henry's neck. She tried to open the door with his fingerprints, but all her efforts, everything became hopeless. Elizabeth called the police but did not know the current location. Looking through the window, she saw Claire and Olive returning to the villa. She hurriedly cleaned up the crime scene, then sat on the chair, opened a book. She read it as if nothing was wrong. GE had a premonition that something was wrong and asked about the boss. Elizabeth immediately told her that her husband was upstairs because he was feeling well. Suddenly, Crae's heart disease relapsed, causing her severe pain. When the ambulance arrived, Elizabeth knew that this was the perfect opportunity to escape. However, Olive appeared and warned her that the police would eventually find the murderer of her father. At this point, Elizabeth admitted everything. Olive was not angry or panicked at all, afraid that he would encourage his stepmother that everything Would be fine if they listened to both of them, then teamed up to throw away the trash. Henry in the backyard, Olive revealed that Elizabeth was the product of a biological process, an experiment conducted by 2 doctors, Henry and Gay, in a room with 6 identical clones according to Olive. She is the 5th version of the Elizabeth reincarnation project. She is right but can only sob. Everything right now is so vague like a joke, and now Detective Logan suddenly came to the villa. He was quite surprised because the previous time he had only met Henry, but this time it was Elizabeth who welcomed him. Logan asked the girl if she called the emergency services because he did. It was reported that someone asked for help. While Elizabeth was still confused, Olive announced that the person who called Cry because of her illness felt suspicious. Logan continued to question, but Olive was behind him and murdered him. Elizabeth witnessing that scene, Olive Land sweated. Reassured he wanted to help, that why he knew that the memories in his head were all pre-programmed by Henry. Elizabeth became more and confused. The two then cleaned up the body together. Olive advised Elizabeth to pack up quickly and leave Hair to somewhere as far away as possible. Elizabeth obeyed, packed up luggage and brought less to avoid being cumbersome, but she took all the money and didn't miss S note. Asked Elizabeth to read me Clay diary before leaving. She agreed, but did not expect him to be locked in a room that provoked Elizabeth to be angry and scream all unexpected music, but was tricked by the blind man to make her eyes white. Killing time, she took Clear diary to read the story starting 5 years ago when Clear was invited by Henry to the research project. In the diary was revealed that Elizabeth was indeed Henry's wife. She had died of an illness after giving birth. Olive couldn't get over the pain of losing his wife. Henry decided to research how to recreate. He cloned 6 cloned based on his dead wife. After 3 years of non-stop experimenting, they finally became success, but there are 2 mutants appearing, making their life not last too long. Third, Elizabeth is in stable health but mentally discovered speech is always in a state of instability. After discovering the laboratory, she panicked and ran down the stairs. She was about to run away from the house but was eventually brought back by Detective Logan, who then lied to Elizabeth as her niece to hide the truth. Just read this when Oliver brought dinner, but the chance that he didn't prevent her from suddenly attacking due to the advantage of being able to see Elizabeth knocked him to the ground and ran out, but unfortunately she still couldn't unlock the password to the door. When she returned, Olive escaped. Elizabeth took a knife as a weapon and went to find Olive, who is in the laboratory taking care of the other clone. He promised to help Elizabeth leave if he told me the contents of the diary, but while she was staring at her clone, which had been unexpectedly injected with sleeping pills by Olive, Elizabeth woke up to find herself tied to an iron post by a helpless chain. She could only carry her family diary and continue reading. Elizabeth Tuesday died of suffocation after being brought back for a long time. Henry said he didn't know why, but Clay doubted his colleagues. Even so, she fell in love with Henry and blindly believed the two of them had a happy time together. While Elizabeth was busy reading, Olive brought food and he asked Clear if there was anything written about him in it. Elizabeth immediately said that she didn't mention him. Sitting in silence for a while, Oregon revealed because he was close to a friend, cloned as a child, so Henry blinded him. In the Clear said she couldn't find any records of the real Elizabeth. She thought Olive wasn't their child but someone from Henry creating, or, more accurately, a young copy of Henry. Learns this, Elizabeth more and more fear for her future. That afternoon while she was sleeping, Olive suddenly approached something and pulled his love neck. Asked Elizabeth to tell the truth if Play had written anything about her. Elizabeth worriedly told Olive his suspicions, but she reassured him that he was not a copy of Henry because she called the hospital to confirm everything. Olive has always had a crush on clones. Elizabeth then tried to seduce him. She succeeded in controlling Olive, so he had to tell him the password. The door. Elizabeth took the key to open the chain. She angrily kicked in Olive's stomach. Suddenly at this time the 6th Elizabeth appeared with a rifle in her hand. She appeared confused as to who to believe in this situation. 5th Elizabeth got the scissors on the floor and did not control Olive to make a shield for him. I did, but I didn't expect Elizabeth 6 to shoot both of them. Elizabeth 5, although injured, she still managed to run out. Before she died, she told clones, read the tree diary. When Elizabeth 6 will find out the whole truth, she sheds tears because it like a series of the tragedies that anyone who recovers from a heart attack returns to the house. Elizabeth calmly waits for her to come and giving out the last diary. Elizabeth has I have my own life, and that is also the last story of the movie. If you like it, don't forget to give me a like and subscribe. For now, hello and see you in the next video.